Alright, stop scrolling. This is the one. Go to sleep. The complete Roman Empire saga. 400 years, all in one place. I've spent over 2 years of my life crafting this series, all by myself. Over 20 hours of content, bringing you the ultimate chronicle of Rome. From the golden age of Augustus to the peak under Trajan, through the chaos of the 3rd century crisis. Well-seeded coalition-s reforms, Constantinus' new capital, and the final split after Theodosius. This was a massive undertaking. If you appreciate the effort, a like and subscribe means the world. No time. Hit save for later, so you don't lose it. Now let's begin. Welcome to the Roman MP. Let us now journey together, back through the mists of time, to the classical world of the Roman Empire. Among the many emperors in the 1000-year history of the Roman Empire, the experience of Aurelian, the restorer of the world, is absolutely legendary. Perhaps no other emperor can compare to him. Within his short reign, he defeated the Alemanni, launched an expedition to Palmyra, and subdued the Gallic Empire. Some have even joked that this was the Roman chief god, Jupiter, descending to earth to save the empire in its time of peril. However, it was such a century monarch who, in 275 AD, died in a conspiracy by his own officials. Many have lamented this, that such a divine ruler was on the throne for less than 6 years. They imagine that if history had given him another 20 years, would he have given everyone a stronger Roman Empire? However, I am here to tell you an incredible fact: Aurelian's reign was already longer than nearly half of all Roman emperors. Isn't that surprising? In fact, you can see it from the numbers. The Roman Empire from 27 BC to 1453 AD, a history of more than 1400 years, had 174 emperors. Even counting the time of co-emperors, the average reign of each emperor is only about 10 years. If we calculate the median, it is a staggering 6 years. In which period did the Roman emperors change most frequently? Who had the longest and shortest reigns? In the next 3 videos, I will use statistical data to gradually reveal the ranking of the length of Roman political careers. In this video, let's start with the divine rulers with the shortest reigns. Let us pick up the annals and begin the ranking. First, let's reveal the Roman emperors with the shortest reigns. The candidates for this award are very competitive and controversial. If we count co-emperors, then the champion is Diadumenian, the son of the Sever and dynasty usurper Mac Arianus. In 218 AD, just 1 month after Mac, Arianus promoted his son to co-emperor. He was defeated in Syria by Elagabalus of the Severan family. His wife was also killed along with his father. If we don't count co-emperors, then the one with the shortest reign is the North African senator Gordian I, the first to raise the banner of rebellion during the 3rd century crisis. That's right, this old brother, who ranked high in the video counting the lifespan of emperors, unexpectedly won the championship in this video counting the length of reign. He must have been extremely proud, so much so that he did not make adequate military preparations and was ultimately defeated by the local official of North Africa. At the high age of 79 and with a reign of 36 days, he stood out on both of these lists. However, Gordian's championship status is still controversial. There is a Roman emperor whose reign has several different accounts. He is Quintillus, the brother of Aurelian's old boss, Claudius II. As a small background board for the beginning of the legend of the restorer of the world, it can be said that his only historical mission was to be defeated by Aurelian. One account says that Quintillus's imperial experience card only lasted for 17 days, while another says it was 177 days. If the former is true, then Quintillus is the strongest temporary worker among the Roman emperors. because the historical events happened a long time ago, and the records of the reigns of Roman emperors are difficult to guarantee accuracy. The above top 3 are for reference only. If one day an emperor comes to me in a dream and accuses me of blowing a black whistle, I am not responsible, regardless of how many days the shortest reign of a Roman emperor was. The fact is that at the bottom of this list, there is a large group of people whose tenure was less than a year. For the rest of this video, let's take a good look at why their endurance was so short. According to a rough statistic, at least 29 emperors had a reign of less than a year. Among them, 11 were during the 3rd century crisis, and 4 were Western Roman emperors. 3 of the 4 emperors in the year of the 4 emperors, and 2 of the 5 emperors in the year of the 5 emperors. A simple rule is that the chaos of the times was the main reason for their short political careers. It can be said that no matter how hard a person tries, they cannot resist the rolling torrent of the historical process. Let's get to know these human mayflies according to the era. First is the year of the 4 emperors. In 68 AD, the last emperor of the first dynasty of the Roman Empire, Nero, committed suicide. Heroes from all over the country rose up one after another. Singing Dial take the stage. In addition to the final winner, Vespasian, the other 3 competitors, Galba, Otho, and Vitellius, each received an emperor's season pass. Then came the year of the 5 emperors. In 192 AD, Commodus was assassinated. The succeeding sage Perdiccans and the auction hero Julianus advanced together, obtaining emperor experience cards of Itexus days and 65 days respectively. The 3rd season was jointly created by the good brothers of the Sever and dynasty, Caracalla and the founder Macarianus. The younger brother Geta and the son Dia Dumenia made the list. The 4th season was the peak of this list. 11 temporary workers were born during the 3rd century crisis. Their deeds have been shown in my previous 3rd century crisis series, so I won't go into too much detail here. The 5th season is the final stage of the classical era. In 363 AD, the apostate Julian died in battle during his expedition to Persia. Jovian, whose name was similar to his, was pushed to the throne for an experience card. He died mysteriously 8 months later. After that, with the last division of the empire into East and West, the temporary worker group of the Western Roman Empire officially came online. The leader was named Constantius III. Unlike the later puppets, Constantius assisted Honorius in stabilizing the western territory of the empire and became the pillar after Stilicho was executed. With his military merits, Constantius obtained a 7-month emperor experience exchange coupon. However, neither Stilicho, Constantine, nor Aetius could save the Western Roman Empire. After Majorian's last attempt failed, the political situation in the Western Empire completely fell into chaos. Maximus, Olyberius, and the last emperor of the Western Roman Empire in the traditional view, Romulus August Iulius, are all on the list. The rule of the Western Empire disintegrated. The political landscape of the Eastern Empire, on the other hand, was relatively stable. In the more than 1,000 years of history of the Eastern Roman Empire, only 6 emperors had a reign of less than a year, and the reasons for their abdication were also strange and varied. First were the 2 brothers of the Heraclean dynasty. In 641 AD, Heraclius, who had once turned the tide, died with regret in the context of the Arab conquest. His sons, Constantine I and Heracleones, jointly ruled the country. However, Constantine died of tuberculosis after only 4 months. Rumors that Constantine was poisoned by his stepmother were rampant, which led to political turmoil. Heracleon, as was deposed and, along with his brother, made the list. The next one is also an old friend. The one we talked about before, the skull god of war, Nike PH or OSI Sun, Street or KIOS. After being defeated by the Bulgarians, he was seriously injured. He barely returned to the capital and died, after reigning for only 70 days. The next one is the Marquis of I Hun of Rome, at the end of the Macedonian dynasty, Michael V. He was on the throne for only 4 months before he caused dissatisfaction due to his radical political means and quickly lost his emperor experience qualification. If these few are not famous enough, then the next to you must be very familiar with. The two Alex I who appeared in the Fourth Crusade, Alexios IV and Alexios V. One was a general who colluded with foreign enemies, and the other was a usurper who established himself as a savior. In the end, they were both turned to dust under the iron fist of the Latin invasion, along with the old glory of Roman civilization. After decades of struggle, the Nikaya Empire recovered Constantinople, and the Palaiologos dynasty was established. At this time, the empire's territory was almost completely lost, but the political struggle within Constantinople did not stop at all. The last member on our list was a victim of this internal consumption, John VII, who was on the throne for only 5 months. In the 14th and 15th centuries, it can be said to be the era of the imperial uncles. The Eastern Roman imperial uncle, Manuel I, followed the trend of the times and only left John VI with a 5-month emperor experience period. However, after his abdication, John VI had his highlight moment. During his uncle's visit to the West, he desperately defended Constantinople, which can be considered a decent end for the people on the list. From the above statistical results, it can be seen that the people on the list are concentrated in several major chaotic eras in Roman history, such as the year of the 5 emperors, the 3rd century crisis, and the late Western Roman period. Whether the change of the throne is frequent, to a certain extent, shows whether the background era is chaotic or not. If an emperor wants to complete a complete reform, 5 years can be considered the minimum period. And among the Roman emperors, there are many who could not complete a 5-year plan. According to statistics, there are 56 emperors whose reign was longer than 1 year, but less than 5 years, accounting for nearly 1/3 of the total number of emperors. They have a significant characteristic, that is, they basically had no dazzling achievements during their tenure. Among them, usurpers, puppet emperors, and monarchs of chaotic eras are dominant. The few who left a name in history are usually also regrettable. The restorer of the world, Aurelian, who suppressed rebellions and rebuilt Rome, ultimately died at the hands of a petty person. The apostate Julian, who was famous in Gaul, was determined to reform, ultimately died before his expedition to the River battlefield was completed. The last Roman, Majorian, who appeared out of nowhere to turn the tide. His full enthusiasm was ultimately shattered by the conspiracy of his former comrade in arms Rick Iman. The last emperor, Constantine XI, who was forced to fight a desperate battle at the end. In his short 5 years, devoted all his heart and blood to the country he had fought for all his life. It can be said that even if the emperor had the heart to do something, the overly short time did not allow them to do anything. The other members of the 1-5 group were mediocre or heinous, so I won't go into too much detail here. As the saying goes, it takes 10 years to sharpen a sword. Did the emperors of the 2-5 group forge the blades they were satisfied with? There are 26 emperors whose reign was between 6 and 10 years. Compared with the members of the first 2 groups, their actions all at least profoundly affected the imperial society of their time. In the list we can see the founding emperor of the Flavian dynasty, Vespasian, the god of war of the Levant, John I the issuer of the Constituti, I.O. Anton Iniana, Caracalla, the friends of Sasanian Persia, Valerian and Phocazon the owner of the skull, Nike PH or OSI, who was periodically exhumed and with. Some members of this group also had a transitional status. Phocas paved the way for the appearance of Heraclius. Vespasian's Flavian dynasty laid the groundwork for the era of the 5 good emperors. Probus's administrative measures laid the foundation for the pacification of the 3rd century crisis and the peaceful dawn of Diocletian's tetrarchy. After Maxentius and Galerius came the constant in Asian era. The members of the 2-5 group still did not have enough time to realize their ambitions, and the probability of unnatural death was still high. The real cause had to be left to the next group. There are 16 members in the 3-5 group. I don't know if there is any coincidence. Although the reign of the emperors in this group was longer than that of the 2-5 group, the result I finally got was a bit unexpected. Most of the emperors in this group are controversial, and it is difficult to find a recognized wise ruler among them. Even Claudius, who had the best reputation, was covered in dust in history for a long time. The other members also had mixed merits and demerits. The last mama's boy emperor before the 3rd century crisis, Alexander Severus. The one with the longest reign during the 3rd century crisis, Gallienus. The founding emperor of the Valentinian dynasty, Valentinian I. The eldest son of Theodosius the Great, the mediocre Eastern emperor Arcadius. The so-minus called witness of the great schism of the Eastern and Western churches, Constantine IX. The list goes on to be even more weighty. The classic tyrants in Roman history, Nero, Domitian, and Commodus, are all among them. Perhaps this is a watershed. If an emperor can cross the 15-year mark, he can show his skills. But if he falls before this watershed, it more or less shows that this emperor's ability is still flawed. He is not competent for complex management affairs. With the above insufficient conclusion, we come to the 4-5 group. There are 14 emperors here. It is a bit of a coincidence that, as just discovered, the reputation of this group has undergone a 180-degree reversal, including 2 of the 5 good emperors. The emperor of the most prosperous era of the empire, Hadrian and Antonius Pius, the successor of Augustus, the cost control master Tiberius, and the emperor of the 4 divisions, Diocletian, and his close comrade in arms, Maximian. Constantine, the outstanding one among the sons other than Crispus, who reunified the empire after his father's death, Constantius II. The one who rose in the chaotic era of the empire and saved the empire from the Arabs, Leo II. The founder of the strong Macedonian dynasty, Romanus I, and his good son in law, Constantine VII. The creator of the KOMEN restoration, Alexios I. The excellent successor, John I. The one called the 8 Claude Spider, who restored the Eastern Roman Empire and was skilled in diplomacy, Michael VII. After reigning for 20 years, the Palaeologo I were obviously tempered by the years and became mature politicians. They all had their own ideals of governance and political achievements. The next 9 contestants are the 6-5 group, who have been in office for more than 25 years, but unfortunately missed the top 10. They can also be called evergreen trees in the political arena. However, compared to the previous 5-5 group, the reputation of the members of this group did not continue to improve with the increase in ranking. On the contrary, there were muddle-headed and corrupt people who were heavily criticized. The 2 emperors of New Rome, Honorius and Valentinian III, were in power for nearly 60 years in total. These 2 evergreen trees dragged the Western Empire into the abyss. To exaggerate, Their contribution to the empire in 60 years was not even as much as Majorian's 6 years of turning the tide after his death. The other 7 members are also controversial. Heraclius I, under the full-scale invasion of Sasanian Persia, turned the Titan supported the collapsing building. In a disadvantageous situation, with excellent military achievements, he shattered Khosrow II's dream of entering Constantinople. However, in the second half of his life, Heraclius suffered major blows in internal and military affairs, and finally died in unwillingness and humiliation. Constantine I, this man who changed the history of classical Europe, his early experience completely fits the life trajectory of a cool male protagonist. He married a princess, defeated his nemesis, and reached the pinnacle of his life. However, his filly side in his later years and his controversial reforms shaped his character image to be extremely complex. Not only the 6-5 group, but even the top 10 emperors with super long endurance are still controversial. So why is the reputation of emperors who ruled for more than 25 years generally not as good as that of emperors who ruled for 15-25 years? The 10th place is Constantine V, who had the nickname Copro Nym, Ustung minus named. Unlike others, Constantine V's term was divided into 2 parts. In 741 AD, Leo II died, and Constantine V inherited the throne. The following year, he led his army east to resist the invasion of the Arabs. His brother Law, Artabasdos, took this opportunity to launch a rebellion. Constantine, after nearly 2 years of civil war, finally regained the throne. The Constantine V, who returned like lightning, was obviously more mature. With excellent military talent, he stabilized the eastern border of the empire. The war against the Arabs was also more wins than losses. The empire's posture towards the surrounding regimes gradually turned to offense. However, the western territories of the empire, Roman Ravenna, were completely lost during the reign of Constantine V. The Roman Empire from then on lost its birthplace, the city of Rome. The iconoclast movement supported by Constantine V also cast a shadow on his historical evaluation by later generations, and he was even demonized. But on the whole, Constantine V was an excellent ruler. The 9th place is Manuel II. The Palaiologos dynasty was also the second to last emperor of the Roman Empire. He was the most tragic one among the top 10 in terms of reign. From his accession in 1391, the empire was always on the verge of extinction. Today we cede 5 cities, tomorrow we cede 10 cities, and then we get a night's sleep. Will we not be exhausted and our troops defeated, and the enemy will come again? However, the land of Rome is limited, and the desire of the Turks is insatiable. Manuel was forced to go to Western Europe to seek support, and the Ottoman army then besieged Constantinople. If it weren't for the appearance of Timur, Manuel would have almost become a Wang Guozh I monarch of a fallen state. And although he was on the throne for as long as 33 years, he lived under the shadow of being surrounded by strong neighbors at all times. In 1422, Manuel, facing another siege by the Ottomans, once again saved the dying empire through clever diplomatic means. Just 1 month later, Manuel II had a sudden stroke and was bedridden. He also witnessed with his own eyes the land he had once recovered almost completely fall. He died 3 years later. I am afraid that no other emperor's reign suffered more profound pain than his. The 8th place is Manuel I. As the last emperor of the Roman Empire to enjoy the title of the Great, the empire during Manuel's reign can be considered the last glory. The imperial army attacked on all 4 sides, making every effort to recover the old territory. But Manuel's own problems were also very obvious. He was ambitious, loved great achievements, and frequently used troops in Italy, Egypt, Syria, and the interior of Asia Minor, implementing the idea of wanting both. In the end, he achieved almost nothing. The defeat at Myrioke Halo in 1176 was just a microcosm of the military actions of the Eastern Roman Empire in the Manuel era. Manuel's policy of overly favoring the Latins and his Milan-minus decadent private life further lowered his reputation. After his death, the empire quickly collapsed, so much so that it suffered the disaster of the Fourth Crusade in 1204. For this, Manuel himself was also to blame. The seventh place is Alexios I. Alexios took over an empire that was riddled with holes and full of crises. After the death of Basilii, the empire frequently changed rulers. After the Battle of Manzikert in 1071, it fell into unprecedented chaos. It was not until the appearance of Alexios that a long period of stable political situation was finally achieved. Alexios resisted the invasion of the Normans in the western part of the empire and defeated the Pechenegs in the north. After that, he cleverly used the First Crusade to recover the coastal areas of Asia Minor. The establishment of the Crusader states also provided a buffer zone for the empire against the Turks. The empire gradually walked out of the crisis since the Battle of Manzi. Parton regained its status as a great power. The evaluation of Alexios has always been full of controversy, but it is undeniable that the 37-year history of his rule of the empire was wonderful and colorful. His life was also magnificent. The sixth place is Justinian I, one of the most outstanding and famous monarchs of the Eastern Roman Empire. He ruled diligently internally, pacified the Nika riots, presided over the compilation of the Justinian Code, and rebuilt the Hagia Sophia. Economically, he reformed the tax system and actively opened up new Red Sea trade routes, trying to get rid of the Persian control over the empire's industry and commerce. Externally, he appointed Belisarius as a general, resisting the constant harassment of the Sasanian Persians in the east and recovering the old territory in the west. In 534, he defeated the Vandals and recovered North Africa and Sicily. Then he began to recover Italy. But the sudden Great Plague greatly weakened the empire's national strength. The war was deadlocked. In the end, Justinian appointed an Arsizand in 554, defeated the Frankish army and completely recovered Italy. But the revival of the empire, with the continuous recurrence of the plague and the death of Justinian, became a pipe dream. Many people in later generations lamented the failure of the Roman revival. However, Justinian was on the throne for 38 years. It can be said that heaven had already given him enough time. It was just that the great events of history could not support the center of the empire. The fifth place is John V. He nominally had a term of 50 years, surpassing Basilii I to rank first on the list. But due to the usurpation of John V and Ronikos IV, John V's actual rule was only 40 years. During his tenure, external forces played an important role in interfering with the succession of the imperial throne. Civil war, the Black Death, earthquakes, and foreign invasions became the main theme of the John V era. Under his rule, the empire in fact had already split into 4 small regimes, completely falling into the bottomless abyss of extinction. The fourth place is Augustus, the first emperor of the Roman Empire, who was on the throne for 41 years, was the emperor with the longest reign in the unified era of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire in the Augustan era was politically clear, economically prosperous, and continued to expand. However, after the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest, the Roman border gradually turned to stability. The gradual cessation of military operations made this period known as the Pax Romana. Not only political and economic achievements, but Augustus's side also gathered a group of literary figures with high artistic attainments, creating a cultural golden age. Compared to his great mind, us Uncle Caesar's ability in both civil and military affairs, Octavian, although slightly lacking in military ability, was a political machine without emotion. The political tradition of the Roman Empire was gradually formed during his tenure. The third place is Theodosius II. He was the first emperor after Augustus to have a reign of more than 40 years. Theodosius II was still very young when he succeeded to the throne. He was successively regent by the old Anthemius, that is, the father of the later Western Roman Emperor Anthemius, and his elder sister Pulcher IA. The Eastern Roman Empire also suffered from the great invasion of the barbarians. But under the regency of Pulcher IA, the political situation in the East was stable. And during the reign of Theodosius II, the construction of the city defenses of Constantinople made phased progress. The new city walls of Constantinople were established. These city walls were also called the Theodosian walls. In 426 AD, Theodosius I presided over the compilation and, together with the Western Emperor Valentinian III, jointly promulgated the law of citations. Theodosius I himself was not interested in government affairs during his reign. In 450 AD, his death by falling from a horse was also an alternative summary of his life as a carefree son of heaven. The second place is Andronikos II. Andronikos I was a thorough intellectual. His ruling focus was inclined towards the theological field. Not only did he quickly negate the religious policy of his father, Michael VII, but he also tried to maintain the stability of the church. Unfortunately, all his efforts were in vain. The empire fell into the endless internal consumption of religious struggles. The Catalan company he invited to resist the Turks also became an enemy of the empire. In his later years, Andronikos I did not handle the relationship with his imperial grandson well. The War of the Two Androniki broke out. This almost exhausted the remaining strengthened land of the empire. In 1328, Andronikos I, who had been on the throne for 46 years, was overthrown by his grandson's army and entered a monastery. He finally died 4 years later. The first place is the Bulgar Minas slayer, Basil I. Basil I succeeded to the throne at a young age. His childhood was constrained by powerful ministers, but the difficult start did not dampen his ambition. Through a series of political means by 989 AD, he finally completely grasped the power in his own hands. Internally, he promulgated strict land laws, severely cracking down on the economic monopoly of the great nobles. Externally, he attacked on all four sides. In 1018, he conquered Bulgaria and was called the Bulgar Minas slayer. The Dalmatian region also returned to the empire's sphere of influence. In the east, he defeated Georgia and Armenia and resisted the Fatimid dynasty in the south. He settled southern Italy in the west. It can be said that he was victorious on all four sides, and the world submitted to him. In 1025, Basil I died on the eve of his expedition to Sicily. Basil I was on the throne for 49 years. His term was the golden age of the Eastern Roman Empire. His departure also marked the beginning of the empire's downward path. The above is all the video content of the reign of the Roman emperors. Due to the differences in different statistical methods and the minor deviations that occurred in the specific rule, the content of this video is for reference only. Everyone is welcome to criticize and correct. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. After the above rough sorting, we may be able to draw a very subjective conclusion. If an emperor's reign is too short, it indicates that his political ability is relatively weak. or he has encountered misfortune, so that he does not have enough time to show his grand plan and accumulate enough experience. Even if he is as strong as the restorer of the world in terms of economic reform, he has not yet achieved final success. In the end, he cannot have a more far-reaching impact on history. And when an emperor's rule reaches about 20 years, his political experience has been successfully accumulated, and his governing skills have also been trained. At this time, the probability of achieving governing results will be greatly improved. But if the rule is too long, it is easy to produce pride and complacency, and it is inevitable that he will collapse in his old age. In this way, the possibility of an earthquake, like that of Constantine and Justinian, in their later years also gradually increases. From this point of view, being an emperor should also follow the golden mean. As the supreme ruler of the Roman Empire and the focus of the common people's attention, the Roman emperor, who shouldered heavy responsibilities, must have borne a different kind of pressure. Although they had the most superior living environment and medical conditions at that time, the average age of this group of people was only in their early 50s. It can be seen that longevity is not easy. Following the footsteps of the last video, let's reveal the top 10 of the Roman emperor longevity list. The 10th place is Claudius Tacitus. In 275 AD, the restorer of the world, Aurelian, fell in the army due to the malice of his secretary. After a discussion like kicking a ball between the Senate and the army, the 75-year-old Tacitus became Aurelian's successor, continuing to lead the Roman Empire to meet the challenges of the 3rd century crisis. Claudius was born in the early 3rd century and completely experienced the bloody and precarious history of the empire since the 3rd century. After he succeeded to the throne, he continued to lead the army to suppress the barbarian invasion, and finally died while resisting the Alan invasion in the east. There are many theories about his death: natural death or the conspiracy of others. But it is undeniable that Tacitus died on the front line. It can be said that he was dedicated to his duty. Even though he was only the Roman emperor for 1 year, Tacitus still, at the high age of 76, became one of the top 10 on the Roman emperor longevity list. The 9th place is Octavian, the first emperor of the Roman Empire. In 27 BC, Octavian accepted the title of Augustus from the Senate, opening the Principate stage of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire in the Augustan era was politically clear, economically prosperous, and continued to expand. Not only political and economic achievements, but Augustus's side also gathered a group of literary figures with high artistic attainments, creating a cultural golden age. Compared to his great mind, Uncle Caesar's ability in both civil and military affairs, Octavian, although slightly lacking in military ability, was a political machine without emotion. The political tradition of the Roman Empire was gradually formed during his tenure. What is more fortunate is that Augustus, who had always been weak and oft unfainted and was on the verge of death, could finally have a lifespan of 77 years. This was a great fortune for both himself and the people of the empire. The 8th place is Justinian, the first emperor of the Justinian dynasty. In 518 AD, the emperor of the Leonian and dynasty, Anastasius died. The then commander of the guard, Justinian, succeeded to the throne, opening the Justinian dynasty. Because Justinian came from a humble background, it cannot be said that he was full of knowledge, but it can also be said that he was illiterate. To maintain the operation of the empire, his nephew Justinian served as an assistant to the rule, adding work experience for the reconquest after his death. If Justinian himself had any great contribution, it was probably the longevity gene of his family. Both Justin and his nephew Justinian were extremely long-lived. and both broke into the top 10 of the Roman Emperor lifespan list. The 7th place is Romanos I, the good father minus law of the Macedonian dynasty. In 920 AD, Romanos left Apenos from Armenia. Through a series of means, married his daughter Helena to Constantine VII, and was then crowned co-minus emperor and began to monopolize power. He successfully negotiated peace with the Bulgarians and Slavs and defeated the Arabs in the east. Romanos once intended to completely seize power, but after the death of his talented eldest son, Christopher, he gradually leaned towards returning to the right path, and therefore in 944 AD, he was overthrown by his other two good sons. Romanos also inadvertently created the rare love between an emperor and emperor, his son minus law Constantine VII and his daughter Helena. The 6th place is Gordian I, the forerunner of the 6 flavor Ramani appeal of the 3rd century crisis. In 235 AD, the army leader Maximinus killed Alexander Severus and seized the throne, but his cruel rule aroused rebellion. In 238 AD, the Gordian father and son in Africa raised an army of righteousness. The Senate then followed up, but before he could react, the uprising father and son in Africa were attacked by the local military forces of North Africa. The Gordian father and son were defeated and both died. Their career was cut short in the middle, but even though he died an unnatural death, Gordian was still able to successfully rank 6th among the longest-lived emperors. The 5th place is Tiberius, the successor of Augustus. In 14 AD, Octavian died. His adopted son Tiberius succeeded to the throne. His personality was strict and difficult to approach. Although he had some achievements in economy during his reign, he was not popular with the people because of his stingy spending, and his relationship with the Senate was tense. In his later years, he chose to retire to an island and control the political situation remotely. During his rule, factional struggles were serious, but on the whole, the Roman Empire during Tiberius's time continued to go uphill. Although he may have had private moral flaws, Tiberius, from a macro perspective, still had the appearance of a wise ruler. His frugal and healthy lifestyle may be the important reason why he rushed into the top 5 of the longevity list. The 4th place is Nike PH or OSII, the last emperor of the 11th century crisis. After the disastrous defeat at Manzikert, the Eastern Roman Empire fell into unprecedented chaos. In 1078, Michael was overthrown by Nike PH or OSII. The domestic rebellion in the empire was constant, and the territory of Asia Minor was almost completely lost. Nike PH or OSII, in order to suppress the rebellions everywhere, promoted a new general, Alexios of the Komnenos family. Who would have thought that this young man would eventually bury his own throne? In 1081, Alexios rebelled and went straight into Constantinople. Nike PH or OS was forced to enter a monastery and died shortly after. The 3rd place is Justinian I, one of the most outstanding monarchs of the Eastern Roman Empire. After passing through the turmoil of the early succession, especially after the Nika riots, Justinian began the revival of the Eastern Empire. He ruled diligently internally, carried out administrative reforms, reorganized the provinces, presided over the compilation of the Justinian Code, and rebuilt the Hagia Sophia. Economically, he reformed the tax system and actively opened up new Red Sea trade routes, trying to get rid of the Persian control over the empire's industry and commerce. Externally, he appointed Belisarius as a general, dealing with the constant harassment of the Sasanian Persians in the east and recovering the old territory in the west. In 534, he defeated the Vandals and recovered North Africa and Sicily. Then he began to recover Italy. But the sudden Great Plague greatly weakened the empire's national strength. The war was deadly. In the end, Justinian appointed an artisan in 554, defeated the Frankish army and completely recovered Italy. But the revival of the empire, with the continuous recurrence of the plague and the death of Justinian, came to an abrupt end. Many people in later generations lamented the failure of the Roman revival. However, Justinian was the third longest lived emperor of Rome. It can be said that heaven had already given him enough time. It was just that the great events of history could not support the center of the empire. The second place is Anastasius I, the financial expert of the Leonian dynasty. In 491 AD, the former emperor's Ano died. Anastasius I married his empress Ariadne and succeeded to the throne. He was known for his financial management. He abolished the notorious gold and silver tax and replaced it with a gold tax. This is commonly known as changing the soup without changing the medicine. But through this move, he won the hearts of the people. Anastasius rested with the people for more than 20 years during his reign. Not only did he win the runner-up position on the list with a high age of 88, but he also laid the foundation for the revival of the Eastern Empire and the reconquest movement of the Justinian dynasty. Next, let's reveal the champion of the list, the longest-lived emperor of Rome. He is the villain of the Iologos dynasty, John VI. That's right, it seems that the divine ruler does not live long, and the curse of the muddle-headed ruler living for 1,000 years has come true again. In 1341, Andronikos III died. Before his death, he did not specify an heir. His son John V succeeded to the throne with the support of the Empress Dowager and his imperial bloodline. The Empress Dowager was extremely suspicious of the Prime Minister John VI, with the support of many supporters, launched a seizure of power. This is known in history as the War of the Two Johns. At this time, the newly conquered Epirus and Thessaly were both captured by the Serbian Empire. At the same time, the Ottoman Bajoran, at the request of John VI, entered Europe and quickly began his expansion in the Balkans. It is not an exaggeration to call this leading the wolf into the house. In a situation where the empire's land was almost gone, he launched a civil war. John VI can be called a Roman traitor. What is more infuriating is that after the failure of his usurpation, John VI was not purged. He lived until 1383, a full 91 years old. Throughout history, the supreme rulers of the East and West have not been short of those who pursued immortality. They either prayed to the gods or refined elixirs. But now we know that nothing can last forever. Even the universe has a day of destruction. Even the greatest and noblest people are just passers-by in the world. Death is the only lighthouse that is always lit. No matter where you sail, you must eventually turn in the direction it points. So friends, let's keep moving forward in our lifetime. I am the UP Master of the Rome section, the driving force for running forward. If you like my video, I hope you can give it a like, a share, and a follow to support me. Your support is the greatest driving force for me to continue to update. In 395 AD, in the Roman city of Mediolmina, today's Milan, Italy, the dying Theodosius I came to the end of his life. He must have had regrets and unwillingness at this time, because it was less than a year since he had reunified the Roman Empire. In that year, he was 49 years old. This age was when many Roman emperors were showing their grand plans. The 49-year-old Diocletian was enjoying the peace and stability of the late Tetrarch. The 49-year-old Constantine was preparing to complete the great cause of unifying the eastern part of the empire. I don't know if Theodosius, before he died, would have sighed like this god is a shameless old gambler. He has abandoned me. Theodosius did not get the time to repair the broken empire. The Roman Empire was passed on to his two mediocre sons. We cannot assume whether a longer lived Theodosius could have helped the empire change its destiny, but Theodosius's lifespan just happens to represent the average level of Roman emperors. In this video, let's learn together how long these classical leaders who were entangled in official duties could live. Due to the lack of data for some emperors, and the unknown years of birth and death, after removing them from the statistics, there are still 157 Roman emperors left. Before announcing the results, you might as well guess first. How long did the Roman emperors live on average? Welcome to type your guess in the barrage. Alright, now for the conclusion. The sum of the ages of the 157 emperors is approximately 7,860.5 years. Everything points to this result. The average lifespan of these emperors is about 50.9961783 years, just over 50. Is this statistical result higher or lower than your expectation? From this, it can be seen that Theodosius's lifespan was already close to the average level of Roman emperors. In ancient times, with backward medical technology, it could not be considered a premature death. Next, we will group the emperors by age and take a specific look at the specific lifespan of each emperor, gradually revealing the longevity ranking of the Roman emperors. The emperors in the youth group can be said to have a tragic fate. There are a total of 9 members. Their noble status could not cover up the sorrow of their early death. The second emperor of the Leonian dynasty, Leo II, unfortunately died at the age of only 1. He and the emperors of the Eastern Han kindergarten in ancient China can be called brothers in misfortune. Their short lives also almost could not touch the supreme power. Most of them were puppets of the whole city. For example, the son of Manueli, Alexios II, was deposed and killed by Enronico II shortly after he was on the throne. There is also the nominal last emperor of the Western Roman Empire, Romulus Augustulus, or as co-minus emperors, such as the young Maximinus, Diadumenian, etc. They all died with their father's failures. Destroying you has nothing to do with you. This may be the words left by the adults who controlled the power to these silly children. In the vibrant youth group, only Elagabalus of the Sever and dynasty had real power, but the restlessness of adolescence eventually buried his throne. The youth group of the Roman Empire, without exception, all had tragic lives. They could neither control their own destiny nor leave much impact on Roman history. Not only the youth group, but the emperors who did not live past 40 could not establish great achievements. We will tentatively call the emperors between 20 and 40 years old the premature death group. There are 37 members in this group. This group of emperors can be said to be a gathering of luminaries. The 2 useless sons of Theodosius, Arcadius and Honorius, led the way. They are followed by famous tyrants such as Nero, Commodus, and Caracalla. The remaining dozens of emperors are also mostly mediocre, either as power hangers or doing nothing, or being unknown in history. But although they are all worms in the gutter, there are still some who look up at the starry sky. The apostate Julian, as the last male member of the Constantinian dynasty, had a short but brilliant life. Alexander Severus, the last wise ruler before the chaos of the empire. Unfortunately, the army was arrogant, and his ambition was difficult to achieve. Constans II, known for his big beard in the historical trend of the Arab conquest, led the collapsing Eastern Roman Empire to struggle to support. He was a timely help. The emperors of this group did not have enough time to train their governing ability, and their governing experience was extremely insufficient. Their governing achievements naturally could not be compared with the old foxes who had been trained for a long time. Of course, there were also many villains among them who personally sent themselves to the grave. After crossing the 40-year-old mark, we can finally see those famous monarchs. There are 62 members in the middle-aged group. Among them, there are outstanding commanders Probus, Majorian, Leo III, Nike PH or OSII, John I, etc. There are learned scholars, Aurelius, Leo VI, Constantine VII. There are heroic rulers who unified the empire, Theodosia Hussai, Constantius II, Michael VII, and several emperors of the Tetrarchy era. The three old friends who lead the way, Maximian, Galerius, and Constantius, are also among them. Not everyone in the middle-aged group can become a hero. For example, the two useless brothers of the Angelos dynasty, Isaac I and Alexios III, the tyrant Phocas, whose rule was a disaster, and the various usurpers who shouted eliminate the tyranny of the emperor. The world belongs to us. Of course, the most well-known is the last emperor, who accompanied the Roman Empire to its final journey, Constantine XI. The unstoppable time, like a sharp blade, cut through everything, fixing his 48-year-old life with Roman civilization in 1453. Perhaps for ordinary people in ancient times, reaching this age was already lucky. But for an emperor, this was obviously not enough. The famous great monarchs mostly had more time. Life is rarely 70 since ancient times. In ancient society with backward medical conditions, being able to cross the 60-year-old mark was already better than most people. And the Roman emperors who successfully broke through and entered the final circle were mostly not ordinary. There are 39 members in the elderly group. As long as you read their names, you can understand their weight in Roman history. The first emperor of the empire, Augustus. The first four of the 5 good emperors, Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antonius. The restorer of the world, Aurelian. The founder of the Tetrarchy, Diocletian. The founders of the Eastern Empire, Constantine and Heraclius. Basil I, Alexios I, and Manuel I. Most of the Roman emperors we are familiar with belong to this group. Their lives did not end prematurely, and they could have enough time to show their grand plans and change Rome according to their own ideas. This was a kind of luck and also a coincidence. Their coincidence contributed well-known historical stories and far-reaching influence to the history of Rome and even the world. Of course, encountering a wise ruler was also a coincidence. Since it was a lucky coincidence, it had to end eventually. There are also a few in the elderly group whose experiences were not so glorious. For example, Nike PH or OSI, whose skull was made into a wine cup. Alexios V, who was helpless against the Crusaders. The Persian exchange student, Valerian. And the 2 Andronikos emperors, who were famous for their heavy rule. It can be seen that the reputation of the emperors in the elderly group really goes from the highest heaven to the lowest hell. Age can certainly allow people to accumulate valuable life experience, but it still cannot reverse human nature. If the universe has a plan for human history, these emperors of different attributes must be a part of the plan. Having counted so far, I believe that many friends are very curious. Who is the longest-lived Roman emperor? Who can enter the final circle and win the final championship? I'm sorry. Due to the tight production schedule, there is no time to reveal the answer to everyone in this video. I have to sell a pass here. Let's reveal the 10 longest-lived Roman emperors in the next video. I am the UP master of the Rome section, the driving force for running forward. If you like my video, I hope you can give it a like, a share, and a follow to support me. Your support is the greatest driving force for me to continue to update. In September 2022, Queen Elizabeth II, who had ruled Britain for 70 years, died at Balmoral Castle in Scotland at the age of 96. at the same time that London Bridge fell. The then 74-year-old Prince Charles finally ascended to the British throne, ending his 70-year-long time as Crown Prince. Although in these years, Charles had experienced many storms, doubts, and ridicule from netizens, it must be admitted that his road to the throne was still very easy compared to other crown princes in history. His more than 70 years of life had always been under the protection of his mother. This succession of the throne was also a matter of course. I believe that any viewer who has watched my 3rd Century Crisis series will understand how enviable such a stable succession is. Let's look back at history and take stock of the succession methods of the emperors throughout the Roman Empire. The emperors of the Roman Empire were not exactly the same as the emperors in Chinese history. At least before Diocletian and Constantine, the Roman state was still nominally called a republic. The leader of the state was called the princeps, not the emperor in the traditional sense, who held all the power. Therefore, in the early empire, the classic father dies, son succeeds was not formed, let alone the primogeniture system. Instead, it was the adoptive succession system, where the emperor chose a capable person and adopted him as his son. For example, Augustus's successor Tiberius, the famous tyrant Nero, and the last 4 of the 5 good emperors, Trajan, Hadrian, Antoninus, and Aurelius, all succeeded to the throne in this way. It is somewhat similar to the abdication system of Yao Shang and Yu in ancient Chinese legends. The policy of selecting the wise and capable could, to a certain extent, guarantee the ability of the emperor. However, this method almost disappeared after the 5 good emperors. Only the succession methods of Alexander, Severus, and Constantine X were relatively similar. In total, 10 emperors succeeded in this way, not to mention those far-reaching political and economic factors. The one who personally ended the Roman abdication system and changed Rome from a public world to a family world was the famous philosopher Aurelius. The way Roman emperors established their heirs was usually to actively establish their favored heir as a co-emperor, but they did not necessarily all live to the day of succession. Among them, there were many unlucky ones. For example, the Roman Zhu Biao, Michaelix, Aurelius's little pendant, Verus, and the untimely plasterer, Constantius III. The common bloodline succession system in Rome was not established until after Constantine's monarchical reform, and the first bloodline succession occurred at the end of the 2nd century. Aurelius's biological son, Commodus, inherited the throne. However, this attempt was obviously not successful. Commodus was eventually assassinated. The Roman Empire began a chicken-minus-eating contest for the throne among 5 emperors. In the 4th century, Constantine carried out a monarchical reform. Bloodline succession was gradually recognized by everyone. By the time of the Eastern Roman Empire, it had even become a national consensus. In the more than 1,000 years of history of the Roman Empire, a total of 54 emperors successfully inherited the throne, accounting for 30% of the total number of emperors. The Roman dynasty never formed a written succession law. The only thing that was universally recognized was the army and strength, and the proportion of those who seized the throne by this means was even greater than the number of inheritances. When there was no written succession system, one's own strength was the truth of everything. Where did the strength of the Romans come from? Naturally, it was the powerful Roman legions. Especially in the chaotic era of the 3rd century crisis, the power of the Praetorian Guard was superior to all others. The accession of most emperors relied on the army. Maximinus, Claudius I, Aurelian, the one who had an indissoluble bond with lightning, Carus, and Diocletian, were all elected to the great treasure by the army. Even in the Eastern Empire, where the succession system was relatively stable, army mutinies and changes of the throne were still not rare events. Of course, the army could support an individual, and an individual could also control the army. Many powerful Romans deeply understood the principle of independence and self-reliance, and that political power grows out of the barrel of a gun. For example, the founder of the empire, Augustus, the founder of the Flavian dynasty, Vespasian, the Taizyu of the Western dynasty, Heraclius I, the Taizyu of the Komnenos dynasty, Alexios I. Their succession can all be summarized as self-minus establishment. The Senate, as an important institution that held important power in the Republic era, although its prestige was no longer there in the imperial era, a skinny camel is still bigger than a horse. It could still influence the appointment of the emperor of the Roman Empire. The succession to the throne led by the Senate, for example, the guardian of the 5 good emperors, Nerva, during the 3rd century crisis, the ones who resisted the tyrant Maximinus, Pupienus and Balbinus. Even after the Senate gradually declined and the imperial capital moved east to Constantinople, this atmosphere of public elections still existed. For example, Leo I of the Leoni and dynasty, Constans II of the Hurri dynasty, and Michael VI all came to power through election. If we say which way of succeeding to the throne was the most comical, I am afraid no one would dare to compete with Julius. In 192 AD, after Commodus was assassinated, the army elected Perdiccas to the throne, but soon after killed him. As for who would be the next emperor, the Praetorian Guard had a heated debate, but as the saying goes, if you want a straight road ahead, the course must be mighty. Why not exchange this throne for a sum of money to spend? So everyone convened the most valuable auction in Roman history. In the end, the wealthy Julianus directly bought the throne. But the cost minus effectiveness of this deal was obviously not high. The military minus born Severus soon rebelled and crushed this bourgeois leader, Julianus. Julianus thus became the king of the wind minus up in Rome, successfully losing himself and his capital in this big gamble. This also profoundly teaches us that we must stay away from gambling. And like other places in the world, the Roman court was never short of conspiracies and struggles. The frontal confrontation within the court was also an important means of seizing the throne. The emperors who represented these full minus score conspiracy skills include the first empress of the Eastern Empire, Irene, who almost married Charlemagne, the Taizyu of the Phocas dynasty, Mycalaya, the Taizyu of the Macedonian dynasty, Basil I, and the one who buried the foundation of the Komnenos dynasty, Andronikos I. Many emperors, after being seized of power, would slowly accumulate strength and then return like lightning. In Rome, there were a total of 6 emperors who achieved a second bloom: Maximian, Justinian II, and Constantine VI are representatives of them. The name of the god of war of the Ming dynasty, Zhu Qizan, must have been heard by everyone. Xi Jinping called himself the Sun Emperor, and was also often despised by the world. There was also such a group of Sun Emperors who were supported on the throne by external forces. The situation was slightly better for the internal warlords of the empire and the interference of the Eastern Empire in the Western Empire. For example, during the Western Roman Empire, the puppet master Rick Eimer supported Libius Severus. The Eastern Empire supported Anthemius and Nepos. The situation was a little worse. For example, Gl. Vicerius, who was elected by the Burgundians. The most shameful were the several Sun Emperors at the end of the Eastern Empire. Alexios IV, who was supported by the Fourth Crusade. The several emperors of the Palaiologos dynasty, who were supported by the Ottomans and the Venetians, John VI and Andronikos IV. These useless people, when the empire was about to collapse, not only did not unite against the outside world, but continued to play the fine tradition of internal strife. The War of the Two Androni K.O.I. and the War of the Two Johns at the end of the Paleologos dynasty completely shattered the possibility of revival until the fall of the Kuntrian civilization. In addition to the above complex and common succession methods, there is also a form of succession with Roman characteristics that is difficult to find in other regions and civilizations. That is, direct appointment by the current emperor for an active division of the empire to achieve an improvement in the efficiency of imperial management. The precedent of appointing an emperor was set by the son of heaven on foot, Valerian. He appointed his son Gallienus as the emperor of the Western Empire. The climax of this phenomenon was created by Diocletian. The tetrarchy system he formulated had a profound impact on the Roman Empire. After that, until Theodosius I, he still obtained his position through this system. It can be seen that its influence was far minus reaching. Behind the birth of the tetrarchy system, there were complex social, political, and economic factors. Why did Diocletian implement the tetrarchy? What interesting historical events happened in the Roman Empire during its implementation? In the following period of time, let's walk into this relatively unpopular history together, and also walk into this mysterious Roman Emperor, Diocletian. Hello everyone. In the previous videos, I have already sorted out the basic information of the various Roman emperors. In this process, we must have discovered that the position of the Roman emperor was a bit dangerous. Not everyone could have a good end. So, since I was free, I made a small statistic on the causes of death of the various emperors. Here, let me make a disclaimer in advance. My own knowledge level is not high enough, and I still need to continue to learn. This video is very unrigorous and is for reference only. If there are any errors or a slight deviation, please feel free to correct me in the comments. So first, we need to define the scope of our statistics. Our statistical standard is the Roman emperors from 27 BC to 1453 AD. So this of course does not include our famous Mr. Caesar, Big Brother. Someone has been killed outside. Killed. Hey, Big Brother, someone has been killed. Killed. Nor does it include the Uncle Crassus, who died a very warm death. Our statistics start from Octavian and end with Constantine XI. This does not include those local warlords who declared themselves emperors. A total of 173 emperors were included in our statistics. Among them, there are also 3 empresses. I have roughly divided the causes of death into 3 categories: natural death, unnatural death, and other reasons. Among the 173 emperors, a total of 84 died naturally, 89 died unnaturally, and 10 died of other reasons. From this point of view, the profession of Roman emperor is indeed quite dangerous. These 3 major categories of causes of death can also be divided into several subcategories. Among the 84 emperors who died naturally, 63 died on the throne. For example, the famous 5 good emperors of Rome, Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian, Antonius, and Aurelius, all died on the throne. This is roughly considered a good end. So the good minus end rate of Roman emperors is 36.42%. It can exceed 1 minus third. The other 21, before they died, had already been driven off the throne. For example, Andronicus I of the Paleologos dynasty. He fought a 7-year civil war with his grandson, Andronicus I, and was finally defeated and squeezed off the throne. At this time, they were still fighting a civil war. There is also Romanus IV, who fought the Battle of Manzikert. He was also exiled after being defeated and died shortly after. But in any case, their cause of death is considered natural death. But even if this part is also counted as a good end, the good minus end rate of Roman emperors still cannot reach half. This is truly a sad story. Next, let's look at the deaths from other causes. First are the two with unknown causes of death, gl. Vicarius of the Western Roman Empire and Theodosius II of the Eastern Roman Empire. These two guys, not only do we not know how they died, but we don't even know their years of birth and death, so there is no way to do statistics. The second category is suspicious causes of death. Since I can't open the console or load a save, we have no way of knowing the specific cause of their death. For example, Carus's, this cause of death is also heavyweight. We'll talk about it later. For example, Carus's son knew Mary Ann. He had an eye inflammation. The Praetorian prefect thought he should stay in the carriage to be isolated. As a result, the emperor died inside. Why? There is also John I, who almost recovered Jerusalem. He also died mysteriously. The cause of death is suspicious. Finally, there is a series of unnatural death lists. In this list, the emperors of the 3rd century crisis really shine. Of the 26 emperors in 50 years, only 2 died naturally. I have roughly divided the unnatural deaths into 9 subcategories. Among them, 7 died in foreign wars, 23 died in civil wars, 15 died in army rebellions, 12 died in assassinations, 6 died in executions, 4 died in riots, 3 died in accidents. First, among the emperors who died in foreign wars, the most dramatic is Nike PH, or OSI of the Eastern Roman Empire. In his war with Bulgaria, he actually had the upper hand in the initial stage. But because later, he was careless and did not flash, he was ambushed and died in battle. After his death, his skull was even made into a wine cup. It can be said to be quite tragic. There is also Valerian, who pushed the 3rd century crisis to its climax. He died in battle against the Sasanian mass. And the famous Battle of Adrianople, the Eastern Roman Emperor Valens, who was beaten by the Goths, also died in this way. The emperors who died in foreign wars, of course, also include Constantine XI. This last Roman emperor, facing the pressure of the Ottoman army, finally died bravely for his country. Of course, some people say that he was finally loaded into the Orban cannon and fired out. He will return like lightning in the future. Next, let's look at the emperors who died in civil wars. Among them, the most comical is Julianus, who obtained the throne by auction. This old man bid against the former emperors, Father Minus in Minus Law, even bargained with the Praetorian Guard. In the end, he spent a lot of money, but the throne did not last long. Then there is the famous tyrant of the Eastern Roman Empire, and also the defeated general of Heraclius, Phocas. He is also a typical example of dying in a civil war. In addition, the several emperors who committed suicide also mostly chose to end their own lives after being defeated in a civil war. The emperors who were publicly executed were also after being defeated in a civil or foreign war. For example, after the Fourth Crusade broke through Constantinople, that Alexios V was executed. After Justinian, I returned like lightning from the Crimea. Those defeated former emperors were also executed by him. The Praetorian Guard succession law in the history of Rome can be said to have played a huge role, and the Praetorian Guard's transcendence law also accounted for nearly 1/10 of the many causes of death. The 3rd century crisis, those emperors are still at the top. The Albanoas, Gordian III, Probus, etc. all died at the hands of the army. There is another cause of death that is similar to this. That is a sneak attack from behind. Assassination is also a classic operation in ancient Rome. The meritorious restorer of the world, Aurelian, died of assassination. Marcus Aurelius's son Commodus was also assassinated. He was even more miserable. He was directly strangled to death by a wrestler in the bath. Severus's son Geta was assassinated in his mother's arms by Caracalla, that is, his brother. I also counted him as an assassination. Ancient Rome had a very long tradition of popular riots, for emperors died in citizen riots. For example, Elagabalus, who had nothing to do and falsely claimed that his cousin was dead, but could not control the situation and was directly hammered to death by the citizens of the capital. There is also Enrico Sai, who did not resist the invasion of the Sicilians, unspecialized in cleaning up his own people. The fighting power of the Roman common people was still very strong. Finally, there are 3 emperors who died in accidents. First is Theodosius, the sponsor of the Theodosia Walls, Theodosius II. He died in a hunting accident. Very classic. He fell from his horse while hunting. This cause of death is quite similar to Mary of Burgundy. The second is the second emperor of the Komnenos dynasty, John II. He also died in a hunting accident, but this time it has nothing to do with a horse. He used a poisoned arrow and accidentally scratched himself, and then died soon after. It's really a pity. The most heavyweight is the Carus we mentioned before. This emperor, in the process of his eastern expedition to Persia, occupied many cities, but perhaps the Persians had mastered a mysterious power that we do not know. Carus, on a rainy day, died of a lightning strike. That's right, if we take the Roman emperors as a sample, the probability of a human being struck by lightning undying is 1/173rd RD. This is a bit too scary. Alright, the above is my rough statistics for entertainment only. If there are any errors, please point them out in the comments. In the next issue, we will count the succession methods of the Roman emperors.